Hello, storytellers. My name is Gary Copeland Lilly, and this little short discussion is actually on the title story in Tony Cade Bambara's book, Gorilla My Love. So we're going to look at this story today and see what it all offers us, and it's a coming of age story, right? So now we know one thing is definitely going to happen. Somebody is going to have an epiphany here, and it's going to be that young person, something that they gain just through the process of growing up. And this is set in the early 1960s. I'll tell you how I got that idea in just a minute. The young protagonist is named Hazel. Yeah, remember Hazel from the other story, from the My Man Brovan? Please don't assume that this is her younger self, because it's not. Both of these stories are set pretty much in the same time period, or near the same time period. I think the middle-aged Hazel in the earlier story, that is set in probably moving towards the late 1960s, 67, 8, 9, something like that, because I'm looking at when the Black Arts Movement started. And I think this story is set in the early 60s. Now, what gives me the clue on that? I always look for details when I try to figure things out about a story. The film that they actually end up watching, the kids. You know, that the curse film that they are watching, that they end up watching, is King of Kings, which came out and played in the theaters in 1961. So I'm assuming that this setting is pretty much around that time. And don't assume, like I say, that it's the same Hazel, the middle-aged Hazel in the first story, My Man Brovan. And I say that primarily because both stories seem to have the same time setting. And, what I will say, I do feel that that the thought of that being a connection is interesting, especially the possibility of her being a namesake grandchild or something like that. But that whole thing in itself is just another assumption, and I never ever want to accept the assumptions when I'm looking at a story and trying to figure out what's happening in it. I'm just saying all that to say, I don't know why Bambara did that. Have two characters, same name, different ages, almost the same time. I don't know why she did it. So, but we're going to move on. Okay, we know that one of Bambara's aesthetic impulses is to create that African American dialect, more precisely a dialect found in a particular African American community. And in this collection, we can see where both of those Hazels have their different voices in their respective story, because they're both narrators. It's a first-person point of view. They're both talking to us, so we get to check them out. And so, but we can see what Bambara does to their individual narrative voices. What is it that we're hearing, and how their dialects are slightly different. Let's look at middle-aged Hazel. We know from the last lecture, the last look at the story, the first story in the book, a fairly standard syntax, an informal diction, some colloquial diction. Now, let's look at middle school Hazel. A fairly standard syntax again, informal diction with some colloquial diction, but some elevated diction as well. There's a different choice of words every now and then that she goes to for a particular emphasis. This choice is the speaker's choice. Bambara creates that. The speaker's choice. But here's something different too. At times, just a few times, there is inclusion of slang. Now, slang is ever evolving. So it is pretty much easy to connect slang use to a specific time period because it changes, and then to use it when it's out of date seems so crazy. You ever seen a film or, let's say, a Western, something that's set in the 1880s, and they're giving slang that's from the 90s? Or from the, from a different time period. It just doesn't fit. So that's the whole thing about diction anyway. With these word choices, is one of the requirements is it has to be accurate and it has to be easily understood. So we can see middle-aged Hazel. She uses that slang every now and then just to, as a word choice, just to put some emphasis on it. But that has to be accurate. Bambara has to use that correctly. Now, to repeat from my previous lecture, diction provides the word choices which define culture, class, education, geographical region of the speaker, and syntax. Syntax is the relationship of those chosen words in a sentence. It's the rules, and standard English syntactical alignment is subject, verb, object. Different languages have different types of, have a different order and stuff. So to create effect, sometimes we invert those. And we're going to see where Bambara does that in this story too. She inverts the syntax with those choices of diction, and look at the effect it has when she does it. The combination of those two elements, syntax, diction, help the writer create tone, mood, atmosphere, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that later when it comes up again. Now, just to give you an idea of how Bambara takes care of her dialect business, check out how Bambara develops young Hazel's character speech. When Hazel responds very early in the story to her discovery that her uncle has reverted back to using his given name, Jefferson Winston Vale, instead of his familial nickname, Hunka Bubba. Hunka Bubba. Her response, the young Hazel's response is, as far as I was concerned, it was a change completely to something sounding very geographical, rather like something you'll find in an almanac. Well, the syntax in that passage is standard, and there is a slight elevation in the diction using the choice of geographical. And Bambara chooses to not use invented spellings to make the vernacular language. She doesn't invent how these words are spelled. She does drop the G on the word ending to create the vernacular, the dialect that shows Hazel as a member of a particular community. And in this case, we know we're still in Brooklyn, we're still in New York. But it also allows Bambara to create Hazel as an archetype, staying clearly far away from steering far away from any thought of a stereotype here. She makes young Hazel a unique individual. Well, how does she does that? The detail she does. One, Hazel is very smart. And not only is she very smart, she's boastful about it too. She's the smartest person in her school, and she tell you probably in the whole history of the school. Remember, she said that. She gives us that. But Hazel is also very sensitive. She is hurt by Uncle Bubba, by her uncle. She is hurt by him. Just in changing his name, but she's sensitive and she's tough. Remember, she's not afraid to step in on a fight to help her siblings and her brothers. She's not afraid to step in there and get tough with them. And she challenges authority. Remember how in the school she does not back down. She does not back down. With teachers, she stands her ground. She's a leader. She's a leader, and that's shown in how she leads that revolt at the movie theater with all the kids, when they find themselves watching The King of Kings instead of the listed movie, Gorilla, My Love. Which they don't know what's going to be about, but it has the word gorilla in it, so it's going to be something like a King Kong thing. And then they feel, well, you can talk about that too. So she's that type of leader. She kind of leads that rebellion. She takes stands, live by a code. Remember she says, Even gangsters in the movie say my word is bond. Well, see, this is bringing us all down to the themes of this story and stuff when we look at it. Let's look at these themes. This is a coming-of-age story, but betrayal, and disillusionment is the theme of the story. You know, the protagonist, Hazel, perceives that she has been betrayed routinely by all the adults around her. Her beloved uncle drops the nickname that she created for him. And he does this in preparation to marry someone else other than her, as he'd promised when she was a little girl. And she is upset. She feels that's a betrayal. He made a promise that he's not going to keep. So the siblings they're going to the movies. And remember when Hazel said, like, you know, that she admits to being a movie freak? That's the first little bit of slang that Bambara is bringing into her narrative, into that narrator voice to tell us something about Hazel. And the use of that word, this is a word that was just coming into effect in the early 60s about slang. And why I say early 60s? Because the movie came out in 1961. So to be playing at a theater that the kids are going to, I figure it's about that same time. 61, 62, 61, you know. And, okay, so they're going there to see this movie, Gorilla My Love, and they end up watching The King of Kings. The film that they're going to see is not shown is not shown. The advertised film is not there. Another betrayal by adults in her world, you know. And now here's a final one. The manager refuses to give a refund, which Hazel figures is just the only right thing to do. You're not showing you advertised, and we thought you were, and we paid good money. You should give us back our money for not delivering on the promise. Coming of age story here. Wow. Look at the progression of all those events. Hazel is not having a good day. She's not having a good day. Why did the uncle's coming marriage upset her so? Why did it do that? See, these are the questions that are revealed in the events that are happening. And, we can know the answer is always there because he treated her as if she was someone special. And she fears that is something that's going to change. That's why she's reacting with so much anger. Anger is the result of fear. So what is it she fears? She fears that he's a special uncle. In fact, the name that the family calls him, the familial nickname, is one that was created by her because of her inability to say uncle. He was Hunka Bubba and had been Hunka Bubba up until now when she's about maybe 12. And all of a sudden it's changing because he's getting more formal in his life as he prepares for marriage. He stepped firmly into adulthood and he's preparing for marriage. And what upsets her, like I say, is because he treated her always as if she was someone special. And that's why he teasingly made a promise that he was going to marry her when she grew up. And everybody in the family, there's nothing weird with this now, okay? Don't get your heads there, because nothing in this story points to that. But it's the way families tease. It's the way families stay close and connected to each other. But, as smart as she is, remember? Smartest person in her school by her account. And I don't think she has a reason to lie. She knows she does that. She gets away with so much stuff at school from the teachers because she's good. As smart as she is also naive. She accepts this at face value. And Is Hazel a reliable or unreliable narrator? That's another question I had about this. She notes that her family has let her down and and that they don't care that they have, according to her. But she also offers proof in different situations of how supported they are. Like, she knows her mom's going to come to school if there's a problem in school, and teachers have to worry about how they present the case. Because mom is on the board, and mom looks pretty tough too, and the kids are all transfixed by the implied threat. Even though mama's not huffing and puffing, they know reputations around this neighborhood. And look at how Hazel envisions the chaos of the crucifixion scene. Let's say if that was one of her family members hanging on the cross, and, she can envision what this chaos and this fighting. But you know what that is? That's evidence of love. Let me show you let me read that. And let me read that part, because it is so interesting to me to see how this changes and stuff, My daddy wouldn't stand for no one treating any of us that way. My mama especially. And I can just see it now. Big Brood up there on the cross talking about, forgive them, Daddy, 'cause they don't know what they doing. And my mama say, get down from there, you big fool. What do you think this is, playtime? And my daddy yelling to granddaddy to get a ladder, 'cause Big Brood acting the fool, his mother's side of the family showing up. And my mama and her sister, Daisy, jumping on them Romans, beating them with their pocketbooks. And Hunka Bubba telling them folks on their knees they better get out the way and go get some help, or they're going to get trampled on. And Granddaddy Vale saying, leave the boy alone. That's what he want to do with his life. We ain't got nothing to say about it. Then Aunt Daisy giving him a taste of that pocketbook, fussing about what a damn fool old man Granddaddy is. Then everybody jumping on his chest like the time Uncle Clayton went in the army and came back with only one leg, and Granddaddy say something stupid about that's life. And by this time, Big Brood off the cross in the park playing handball or Scully or something, and the family in the kitchen throwing dishes at each other, screaming about, if you hadn't done this, I wouldn't have had to do that. And me in the parlor trying to do my arithmetic yelling, shut it off. In that passage, that's where Bambara inverts the syntax, corrupts the language, so to speak. That order of language, that relationship of words in the sentence. This is where she corrupts it. And look at the artistic effect it has on that whole passage. It gives it a sense of tension, and this is just Hazel envisioning how her family would respond to seeing one of their members nailed on the cross. They wouldn't be forgive them, Father, for what they do. They don't know what they're doing. No, there's going to be something going on there. They got your back. But she feels that she's been betrayed by these very same people, and she's still trying to work through that. She's still working through that. But this is what she envisioned about a crucifixion scene that involves all of them. So as a narrator, even though she feels this betrayal and the sense that no one is connecting with it, especially all these adults, she had this sense of right and wrong that is so solid. Remember, when she gets refused the refund from the manager at the movies, she sets the candy station on fire when she leaves. Shuts down the place for a week after that to make repairs. And her father was getting ready he figured out, because Brood snitched, he figured out that she's responsible, and he is getting ready to do some corporal punishment here. And she explains them because she avoids it by telling him it was the right thing to do. And he understands, okay, in a sense. But she knows that she has the support of her family, but she still feels this betrayal because her favorite uncle is marrying somebody else. And not only that, He wants to be called something different than what she has given him, the name she has given him. You know, Hazel, Hazel. So is she a unreliable narrator? Just a bit. But we get the clues here. But remember, this is a coming of age story. She doesn't understand everything yet. And she is naive a little bit, even though she is tough. You know, and the use of the inverted syntax and all those improper sentences strung together, we can see the effect of that in the story into driving the tension. It heightens the tension in the scene. Sort of like the chaos inside the movie theater. Remember, she led that? Same thing. So in this coming of age story, the youngin has to have an epiphany. Hazel's epiphany is that adults don't always mean what they say. Adults don't always mean what they say. But what she doesn't know yet, and she hasn't learned, is that her family recognizes what has happened with her perception of the marriage, the name change, everything. But they don't know yet what quite to do, because they are concerned about each other. They do love each other. And they don't know how to smooth this out with her yet. And they know she's angry, and they're letting her be angry in hopes that she gets it out. They offer some rationalization, but, you know, Hazel, she's smart. She refuses to accept them. You know? Hunka Bubba says, well, that was Hunka Bubba, but right now, like, my name is Jefferson, Vale, Jefferson Winston Vale. And she's, that was a different me. And she says, like, this is a different guy now. And Granddaddy Vale kind of, he offers that opinion too, but she just, look what she calls him, a lying dog. I know you're a lying dog. And then she thought about, she says to herself that she chose the wrong word. She should have used the word treacherous to define him. So she's conscious of the elevating, how the elevating of language gives a deeper meaning to what she wants to say about him, and just calling him a lying dog isn't enough. You need another word for that one. You need a word that has a little bit more heft to it, and she considers like treacherous. And so, but what has Hazel learned? That adults don't always say what they mean. That's part of it. That's part of it. And even though the family makes a soft effort to rationalize their error, Hazel is so unaccepting. Her uncle is a lying dog, but her immediate wishes that she had called him a treacherous dog. And the problem is not just that adults don't always mean what they say, but they don't even say they're sorry for it. And that is Hazel's revelation. That is what she learns in this coming of age story. So I'll come back later. We'll talk about another chapter, another story in this collection of short stories by Tony Cade Bambara, Gorilla My Love. Thank you.